actually, I called him I was at work and I called him and he gave me the news while I was at work that he had cancer. And it was something I never expected, and it was a pretty emotional thing for me. He told me some of the specifics that the urologist had told him about that he'd need to have surgery, and that's before we understood anything really about prostate cancer. I couldn't have even told you at that time what a prostate did. So that weekend, it was like a cram session on the internet, and I was really worried because this could have a major impact on our life, the side effects of the treatments. And I was worried, I was worried that my husband, number one, was going to be alive. That came first. But if we could avoid treatment, the more I read and studied on the internet, the longer that we could avoid some of the bad effects, the better. Because again, I have faith that that things are continuing to develop and there'll be more options in the future. So I questioned the doctor about my husband's specific scoring, Gleason score, because the way I had read the results, there was one core out of 12 that was positive. 5% of that core was positive, and of that 5% of the one core, only 10% were ranked Gleason 4. So I said, it seems to me that this is a very low 7 and maybe it's not that aggressive. And he said, a 7 is a 7. And a 7 needs to be treated. And he said that because of my husband's age, he was at the time 62, that he was too young for radiation, because if he went on radiation, then he would likely get bladder or rectal cancer in the future. He said he was not a candidate for active surveillance, and really his only choice was to have the prostate removed, and the sooner the better. I asked the doctor if about support groups in our area of the East Bay, and he said, oh, support groups. He said, that's just for the guys that have problems as a result of treatment. He said, the other guys, they go on with their life and they don't go to support groups. I asked about, we had an upcoming trip to Europe, and it was a very special trip that we had been planning for over a year. And I asked him, at that point, it was June and the trip was in September. And I said, could we postpone the surgery until after the trip, the surgery that he was proposing? And he said, well, you could wait till after the trip. But 20 years ago, when I was working at Stanford, my father had prostate cancer, and we postponed a big family trip so that he could be treated. And I often wonder today, his father at that point was 80-something, whether he would still be alive if they had gone on that trip. So he told me on one side that, yes, go ahead on the trip, but on the other side he was saying, you might be killing your husband. And then we got through maybe 3 or 4 of my questions, and the answers were very rapid. And then he more or less cut me off. He said, I don't have time for all of these questions. And I mean, this was something that could affect the whole rest of our life, and he didn't have the time to answer my questions. And then as we were leaving the appointment, even though we had said we weren't interested in surgery quite yet, he handed my husband a little card with the person's name to schedule the surgery. He wasn't listening to us at all. I think sometimes, in our case, I was a researcher in this whole venture. I was on the computer sometimes till 2 in the morning. And you can't just go. You have to be informed yourself. You can't just go with what that urologist says. And the first urologist, and I'm glad that we were able to be on active surveillance for this last 2 years.